way. So when I went through those years of struggling, what did I learn? Well, it's funny. I started out thinking, oh yeah, people, they need to know composition and design, which is absolutely true. But what I realized during that time is that people, though they struggled with design and composition, and they admit that they didn't really have a clear understanding of what it was or how to do it, I was more surprised at their frustration at being able to communicate a clear story. They were not storytellers. They didn't know how to imagine things. How many times have you heard an artist say, or somebody say, oh, I can draw, and now I can't draw what's in my head, but if you put something in front of me, I can make it look exactly like that. That's not drawing. That's copying. So I've heard that my entire life. I never thought it never clicked until I started working with accomplished artists who struggled at that very thing. And I'm like, whoa, how is that possible? So I realized, whoa, yes, design and composition are important, but story, people are having a hard time with that. So the way I look at it now is design and composition is how you get to your destination. But before you can figure out how to get there, you need to know where you're going. And that's what story is. That's what imagination is. So I have a way of teaching people how to almost exist in a very dark room. And using visual mark making in a weird way becomes like a sonar. Where it's doo, 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 and all of a sudden they're in this dark room, and this dark room is full of stuff. And using this visual technique, you can begin to take form of this world that's in darkness, and all of a sudden it becomes solid. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And I don't really know how I've been able to do that. Well, I do, but I remember being very, very young, 5, 6, 7 years old, 10, 11, 12, having experiences that I just knew how to do that. And it was so clear when those moments came to me that now I get to train people in it, which is really, really cool. Okay. So what I learned when I went through those years of struggling was that people were struggling. They were struggling with communicating who they are. That's all a story really is. It's your perspective, who you are. What made me go through those years of pain and stay strong through it, knowing where I was going. I had a vision. I saw a snake going up a hill. And as it was going up, as it was ascending up the hill, its old skin was caught on a rock, a hard place in your life. And as it was ascending, the old skin was being pulled off. And what was sad was my family, my friends, the people who loved me, who cared for me, were looking at the old skin, at the Aladdin. They were not looking at the victor growing towards the Don Victor. But I was aware of that. I knew the frequency of that dream. I could see it. I could read it. I could understand the design. I knew what that meant. And so even though I had to go through years of struggle, it was beautiful because I had that inner vision. I knew where I was going. I didn't know all the hows, but I knew where I was going. I knew what it was going to feel like. I knew the design of it. I knew the function of it, not necessarily the form that it was going to take. Okay? So the story is what artists are missing. It's the function. Now, before that, they really, in all honesty, need to come deeper into who they are. Okay? But we'll just call that story for now. What I also learned was that artists were not looking for a weekend workshop. They were not looking for, a come and go class. They weren't looking for classes or workshops. They were looking for mentorship. They wanted a long-term relationship with someone who could actually help them grow as an artist, but truly as a person, to unlock who they are, to be who they are. If they are painting at a level and they're looking at the artwork and they're frustrated, because something's off, but they can't put their finger on it. And if they go to their husbands or they go to their wives or they go to their friends or families, moms or dads, they post it on Facebook and every single person says this, oh, I love it. That's amazing. You're so talented. And the people that are really close to them that they can confide in, and they say to that person, yeah, but there's something off. It's not right. And that person lovingly says to them, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. It's beautiful. They don't get it. You're not being hard on yourself. You're being honest with yourself. There was something in you that you're trying to put on canvas, and great. To them, It's good enough. To you, because you have a standards, it's not meeting the standard. It's a different frequency. Your frequency is up here. Theirs is down here. The artwork that you produced is somewhere in between, but it's not where you set it to be. It's fallen short of its glory. It has fallen into what they would call, in religious terms, sin, meaning that sin is a word, it's an archery term that means you set out with a bow and arrow, okay, and you're looking at the bullseye with all the intention of hitting the spot, hitting the mark. And so you're focused. Every part of your being is focused on hitting the mark, doing it pitch perfect. And you let that arrow fly, and it misses the mark. That's what sin is. And so therefore, if you would have hit the bullseye, that means everything, the gestalt of that moment came into alignment in such a way that it manifested its complete and perfection. Its completeness and its perfection. Its fullness. Okay? But if you missed the bullseye, even though your intention was pure, your actions were concentrated, but you missed the bullseye, it has now fallen into sin. It has fallen from its glory of intention to its sin state. Okay? And that frustrates you as the creator. And you want to reconcile that. There's a vibration disturbance. You want it beep, 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 but it's doing it's a very different everything. Okay? I know that was kind of crazy, but anyway, it's a very different everything. And so as the creator of this thing, you want to reconcile it. You want to bring it back into harmony, into where it's supposed to be. But the people around you look at the surface and they say it's good enough. But that's not good enough for you. It's not that you're a perfectionist. You wanted a baby. You had the baby. It's missing a leg. You see what I'm saying? You produced this thing that was inside of you. You produced it. It's missing a leg. How the hell can you make this thing have a leg again? Well, that's when you have to understand the invisible technologies at place. So that when you go to create something, you create it at a very deep level, at the invisible level. See, if you control the invisible parts of your composition, of your work, the visual parts take care of themselves. See, people like what they see, but they feel what they do not see. And if what they do not see is right, they feel right. If what they do not see is wrong, they feel wrong. Okay? That is very simplistic, but you get what I'm saying. So we see it and we feel it. The seeing part is easy to do. If it's done in such a way, people are like, that's cool. I like that. Great talent. The invisible part is where the magic happens. And that's why most artwork isn't magical. And I don't care just because somebody did it, made an image. I'm not going to call them an artist. I'm not going to give them a participation trophy. They lost. They set out to achieve something. They didn't achieve it. And they can bullshit themselves. They can tell themselves all kinds of stories. Oh, well, it's open to interpretation. Or as I was producing it, I started getting other ideas. Bullshit. You failed. And now you're trying to make excuses. So you can lie to yourself. Or you can get to work with correct information, a system of support, and start producing work that's actually meaningful, that's profound, that's deep, that's beautiful. Not pretty, but beautiful. Now, the third thing that I learned over these years was that people wanted to be an artist wants to be part of something bigger than themselves because of our nature. We tap into an invisible reality and we make it concrete. And because when we tap into that, we see past what we see. We know there's something bigger than us. And we want to be part of that. So at the Academy, we're dedicated to something, flooding the world in beauty. That's my mission for my life. is to flood this world in beauty. And specifically, I'm going to do it through art, through the selling of it, through the helping of artists like you to compose it better. Imagine a world where everywhere you looked, the images, the architecture, helped us, stimulated us in such a way that it, by its very presence, it raises our consciousness. It raises us to a place where we choose then to do good to others, to treat people better, to be beautiful ourselves. That's amazing. I think that's a worthy goal, a worthy mission, a worthy cause to put your talents to, that will have returns as an investment, will have returns that you can't even imagine because it enriches others. If you can enrich others, they'll enrich you. If you want their riches, if you don't want their riches, and you just want to enrich others, that's beautiful. You've been enriched just by that. So to sum it up, what I learned in going through all that time, all that struggle, I learned that artists want to tell stories. And they're frustrated because they can't. And I learned that they want to be they want to be mentored. They want to be guided into this process. They don't want to go at it alone. They want somebody who understands it, who sees it and sees them and can help guide them into a place of maturity so they can go and stand on their own, become their own individual, own their own life, own their own work, tell their own stories in their own style, from their own perspective, and be loved for it. Not copiers, but composers, to be revealers of life, of truth. That's what we're doing. And then ultimately in that to become part of something that's bigger than themselves. So does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? Do you struggle with telling stories? Do you struggle with really seeing yourself as an artist? Maybe you're really good at painting, but when you look at masterworks, there's something there that you don't feel the connection. Trust me, if I guide you and I teach you, within 2 to 3 months, you will have multiple experiences where you, while doing your own work and you look at a masterwork, you'll feel a connection as if you are in the here and now with that artist. They're with you, you were with them. When you look at their work and you begin to read, not just look at a painting, but actually read a painting, you understand that a painting is an essay. It is almost like a journal, a dialogue of decisions that the artist and the muse made together. And you'll be able to see that, understanding why the line starts here, why it ends there, why it's in that direction, why it's that thick and why it's that long. You'll be able to understand these things. Why is that value dark and not light? Oh, because if it shifted, the story would change. Why is that line there or that edge there? Oh, because it brings me to this point of the story. If it shifted just a little, it would bring me to a different place in the image, which then would make me miss the story. I always say, follow the design. It tells you the story. You'll be able to go to museums and actually feel your heritage, your family tree is in those places. Who we are as artists, we come from a very long, long line of teacher-student dynamic, the apprenticeship system. It's the only way to become a true artist. I know we try to pretend and get haughty about being self-made bullshit. That's not who we are. For at least 5,000 years, we passed down traditions, maybe even more. We've taught people how to tell stories, aka communicate concepts, okay? To connect with the consciousness of another individual. And how? We do it through language. We do it through dance. We do it through music. We do it through visual art. And visual art is design. Through design and story, those are the two threads through all of the art through the last several thousands of years. The subjects change, the mediums change. Why we do it, why we don't do it, quote unquote subjects, right? The mediums, some are sculptures, some are mosaics, some are paintings, different kinds of paints. Some are brown school, some are coloreds. Different styles, representation, and impressionistic and postmodern and this and that, whatever, different styles. But what they all have in common is the desire to communicate a consciousness, desire to communicate an awareness, an idea, for me to tell you something, or you to tell me something. And then we do it through visual imagery, not representation. Because ultimately, I need to make you feel I need to make you feel what it is that I perceive. Okay? So now you could go and learn this yourself. Maybe. There's some videos. You go on YouTube and start watching videos. The problem is the people that I work with did that. They went to YouTube. They went and bought the books. The problem is the books, even the old books, had certain, there were certain understandings that people knew. You know, people understood that art was about design. So they wrote from that perspective. Nowadays, we don't think that way. And so therefore, without that understanding, you go and read those books and you read the composition sections and they don't make sense. Or they all kind of say the same thing, but it doesn't go deep. It doesn't open it up for you. Okay? So that becomes a problem. You go on YouTube, sure, you can watch all kinds of videos. But what do people want? They want someone to guide them through that, and YouTube ain't going to do that. They'll give you the instruction, but not the education. They might be able to teach you things, but they will not train you to be. They'll teach you what to do. They won't train you how to be or what to be. And what you're being is you. That's what we want. We want to be authentic. We want to be in control and have ownership of who we are. To be able to say what we want in a way that's effective, meaning other people get it. If they don't get it, then you wasted your time. It may be pretty, but it won't be profound if no one else understands it, if nobody else feels it. So you can go and try to do this the hard way. Spend the next 3 decades. Do you really have 30 years to try to figure it out? My students often tell me, within months, 6, 9 months, 12 months, within 6 to 12 months, they save 20 years. Is there any other place that you know you can go and get that kind of growth, accelerated growth, the collapsing of that kind of time? So, when it comes to story, this is the hard way. Artists will put an image out there, okay? And then they hope, because they did it with sincerity, okay? They did it with the best of their knowledge, but you don't know what you don't know. And so you can't use those, you can't tap into those technologies. If you don't know that that little switch on the wall turns on your light, then guess what? You're going to go to bed when the sun goes down because you don't even know light exists. Or if you do know, you don't know how to access it, okay? So you don't know what you don't know. But once you know, oh, I go and turn that little switch on and boom, now there's light. Now you can be a true artist and not go to sleep until 4 a.m. because now you have light. So they'll produce it with sincerity, but they don't know what they don't know. And so then they put it out there in the world and they hope, fingers crossed, that people get it, that people like it. People want to buy it. Some people like it, but they don't want to buy it because they don't get it. It doesn't feel right. Why doesn't it feel right? Because it hasn't been designed. It's been copied. It's been attempted, but it hasn't been intentionally designed. The other way that they try to tell a story is they try to go too literal. They try to represent it. Jack and Jill went up the hill. They look at the sun and they try to paint a yellow spot. They're not trying to design with inside the painting the sense of its warmth, its radiance, its vibration, its heat. You capture those things, that's profound. There was one woman I once talked to, and she did a commission of a parrot. And the guy said he loved his parrot. Of course, the parrot died because it used to make him smile all the time. And so I said to her, well, so when I looked at the image that she drew, she had a parrot, and it had a little tiny smile because she was trying to make the parrot happy, representationally. The problem was, in the design of the piece, the parrot is sitting on this branch that's making a huge frowny face. So I went into Photoshop and I changed the image and I changed this downward arc of the branch to an upward arc. I realigned the feathers, the nuances in the images so that we were just saturating this painting, this image, with these upward moving curves, smiley faces. See, the key is not to put a smile on the bird. The key is, how do you make the painting smile? Now, why is it important to make the painting smile? Because when the man walks by and out of the peripheral of his eye, he catches a glimpse of that image. He's not looking at the details of the birds. What he's doing is he's actually feeling the overall design of the painting. And if the overall design is designed to trigger within the man a smile. And you've captured the relationship between that man and his bird. You've captured the very essence and the very spirit of the relationship between him and that animal. See, now you're no longer selling paint on canvas. You're selling a very profound experience. Something that will touch that man for the rest of his life. Even when he's not looking at the painting directly. Does that make sense? Could you imagine if you were able to perform your ideas at that level? Imagine doing portraits like that. When I was very young, people would say, and I didn't understand what they meant. Wow, your work has so much soul. I didn't know what they meant by that when I was younger. Now I totally do. And it's what I teach. So those are the hard ways of telling stories. Now, do you want me to share with you some ways to actually tell stories in your art? Give you some ways to look at your art a little bit differently that will help you tell stories, profound stories, better stories, fun stories, engaging stories, to help you move from pretty to profound. So that your work doesn't only look great, but it is great. The work itself is great. So imagine if you were able to do a still life or a landscape, plein air, figure drawing, figure painting, a cityscape, and you had a way to just kind of quickly tell a story in it. At the Academy, we teach different ways of telling stories, but I'm going to share one with you. And you had a way, not just to copy what you see out there in the still life or in the plein air experience, but you had a way to actually tell a story. Again, what is the story? It is what you're perceiving. It is your perspective of the relationships in that space that you're viewing. You see that, and you scan across the landscape, and there's a moment that it grabs you. Now, the representationalist mind, the copier, will say, "Ooh, I have to copy exactly what I see," and they become a slave to the details. But the composer says, "What is it? What relationships, light to dark relationships, angles, line relationships, line to curves, okay, spacing relationships? What are the relationships? What are the visual elements that are actually present, that's actually triggering in me this reaction, this feeling?" If you ask that question, it's a very different answer. You'll get a very different answer. That frees you up to have style in your work, because you've been able to actually obtain the essence of what you just saw. And you could take that essence, you could actually take the essence from the landscape that you just saw, you felt it, and you can make it into a figure, you can make it into a still life, you can make it into a landscape, you can make it into what you just saw if you want to. You could change the style of it, you could go hyper-realism, you could go abstract, you could go impressionist, it doesn't matter. If you are able to capture through design the essence and the soul of what you just saw, what you just experienced. And what you're doing then in the language of design is actually writing on canvas the formula that triggers in another individual a very similar experience. Okay? That's the magic. And the writing, the mark making that we do to actually trigger that experience, to trigger that magic, you could call it the spell. You're not spelling things out. Think about that, huh? Think about that. Something is hidden dark within me. An idea. I put words to it, a code. I speak it out into your life. You receive it. You know the code. So you unlock the code, and inside of you, that which was in me is now in you. Think about that. Without language, how would we can't, without being able to communicate, we would not commune. I could not put what is in me in you and you in me. We could not be one. But through communication, I can be one with you. You can be one with me. We can commune. I can take that which is in me, code it, send it out to you. You can receive it, decode it, and get it, and now we're one. What is in me is in you and you in me. That's beautiful. Think about that. And so if we do it through language, we write things out, and what do we call that? Spelling. We're casting a spell. A certain order of things that need to be done, that if done in that order, in that alignment, releases something inside of you. That's magical, right? That's what we're doing. Our paintings on the wall are spells. Now you get to choose. What is the spell that you're casting over people? Does it make them fall in love? Does it make them want to be great fathers? Does it inspire them to be great lovers? To be great husbands and wives? To be great community leaders? How can a still life make you inspired to be a great community leader? I know how to do it. Do you? Do you want to? The method I am going to show you in this little course, I've shared with 80-year-olds and 8-year-olds. I'm sure the 8-year-old, needed a little guidance, but 8 to 80, they all got it, and they were able to tell really cool stories through it. So I say that because there is absolutely no reason why you can't do this. So let me share 3 secrets with you in storytelling from this course. Secret 1, people. Secret 2, memories. And secret 3, gazing, or the gaze. So the first secret is people. You have to understand that we're creating artwork for robots. We're creating artwork for furniture. Oh, wait, no, we're not. Sorry. We're creating artwork for people. And so people relate to people, not things. We own things. We relate to people. Okay? And so what I mean by people, because this is where you have to, a person is this body of flesh. Contained within that flesh is a personality. So it's personality that we're really, really after. So if you have a still life, what's the personality of those apples? What's the relationship of those apples? Is one female and one male? If that's the case, are they brother and sister? Are they husband and wife? Are they cousins? Are they at school together? Do they play sports together? All of those have a very different energy to them, a very different dynamic. What's the personality? A personality in your images. If you have an object, let's say a vase with flowers and a little flower down on the ground, and the background, and the surface, well, there's 5 different personalities, maybe even more. You might have along the edge of the flowers different pods of flowers, and each having their own personality. And if you can compose personality into those images, into those objects, not make them cartoony, unless that's part of your style, then that's totally fine. That becomes a little easier. Okay? But how do you make it have a personality? If it has a personality, people relate to it. It goes beyond liking it. They like it the way it looks, but now they get to feel it. They're connecting deeper with it. So how does your work have personality? And more importantly, how do the objects in that work, if you're doing a figure, does a shoulder have a personality of its own? Do the hands have personality? Do the ears, the eyes, the nose, the teeth, do they have personality? The second secret is memories. And so the goal then is once you have your personalities, you want to then trigger a memory. You want to trigger a memory. So you want to trigger a memory of a personal belief or personality. So for example, if you have an object and you give it, you look at that and you say, okay, well that's a mom and a kid. Okay. Now we relate to it on that personal level. Doesn't have to look like a mom. Doesn't have to look like a kid. It has to feel like a mom. It has to feel like a kid. Then you give it a belief. The mom protects her child. The mom protects the kids. Okay? Wow, when I look at that, I feel like that mom is protecting that child. That mom is scolding that child. that mom is embracing that child. When I look at that, I feel like those two apples are like mom and daughter, and the mom is helping the daughter see herself as beautiful. Versus the mom is helping that daughter learn how to bake a cake. I don't know, whatever. Okay? Both of those are very different energies. And then when you bring in a memory of personality, you would say something like, okay, the warrior mom and the frightened child. This is more of like the grizzly mom, right? And her cub. Wow, when I look at those apples, it's like, yeah, I can tell it's a mom, but like she's a warrior mom, right? There's an energy, there's a boldness to her. She's fortified. She's strong. And that other little apple, it's just scared, it's timid, it's nervous. Now, to the eye, they're just apples. But what we feel is a story. You got me? Is that making sense? Another way is, look at warrior mom next to smart kid, smart child. Or warrior mom next to warrior child. You see, warrior mom next to frightened child, warrior mom next to smart child, and warrior mom next to warrior child. Warrior mom is the same in all, but the relationship is different. The story is different. The dynamic is different. The energy, the vibration, the frequency of the piece is different, even though the representation is exactly the same. So it's by managing the nuances in what we see that trigger a different emotion or memory in us. And we look at it and we say, ooh, that has personality. And the relationship between the two is your belief. What is it that they're doing? Okay? So you want to have secret one, person. People relate to people, not things. And two, you want to trigger a memory in the viewer. You want to make them feel like they're remembering something, a personality belief, personal belief or personality. The third secret is called the gazing direction, or the gaze. Every object has a gazing direction. And you can rearrange objects, and you want to become very, very sensitive to the gazing direction, okay? So it's almost like every object has a face, and it's looking at something. Every object has a face, it's looking at something. And so what you want to do is be able to manage the nuances and manage the design of this composition. Be it a still life, you might have to redraw the tree so it's not exactly as you see it, because the way you see it, its gazing direction is looking off the page rather than looking over at the other cluster of trees. So for example, let's say you have a landscape and you have one big tree and a cluster of small trees, all right? So you might look at that, and from my perspective, I would say, hey, look at it. It's this man, he walks into a bar and he looks over at this group of women, right? So how do you, that's the story. That's the energy I want you to feel. Now, it'll be cloaked in the context of a landscape. But when you look at it, you're like, oh, yeah, that reminds me of what, two guys are standing in front of this painting talking about, yeah, man, when I went to the bar the other day, I saw this group of these beautiful women, right? And I walked up to them, I approached them. Now, what's interesting is if you're going to compose this image, you might put one tree, you might put the cluster of trees, right? Those are the personalities. Now, the belief, the engagement. Do we have us keeping the man or the tree by himself, isolated, and just looking? Or do we have him going over? There's a big difference in that story. If he's just looking, well, maybe what we do is we bring the mountain. As the mountain slopes, it slopes to him. That way our eye is brought to him, and he's vertical. He stops there, but we see the cluster of women, making us feel that, what is he doing? He's looking over at them. But if we flip the mountain, and the mountain slopes coming from, let's say, the right-hand side of the picture, over towards the left so that it goes towards the cluster of women. Well, now we see the masculine single tree looking at the cluster of girl trees, and the mountain is helping us guide our way over there. Okay. Now, if we make the mountain go up and down, and our eye travels through this up and down, well, then we're going to feel that it's taking longer for him to get there, and maybe he's second guessing. Maybe he's losing confidence, gaining confidence, losing confidence. Should I do this? Should I not do this? What happens if this? What happens? Now he becomes nervous. Now, if it's sloping and it's steady, well, now he's walking. He may be suave, he's smooth, he's walking over. You see how we could tell all kinds of amazing stories, and you still can keep your style, you can still keep your subject, you can still keep your medium. But now when people look at it, they feel something different. They feel something they can relate to. Not just trees, that's what they see. But what is it they're perceiving? They're feeling something in the design. a story, something that's personal to them, something that they can relate to on a human level. You see the magic of what we're doing? Can you imagine if you were able to go do plein air paintings or a still life or do a figure drawing or a cityscape or even an abstraction that comes out of your mind and be able to do it in a way that communicates a brilliant story, a beautiful story, an uplifting story, a profound story? Just imagine if you had that skill, that ability. I want to show you a course that we have, okay, if that's something you want, if you want to learn how to actually go deeper into these skills. And I want to, in the course you'll actually get the how-to of actually how to manage the nuances. I actually give you a system on how to do that. But if you want help in this, if you want real help, then I do offer a 1-year apprenticeship program. And we do that all online, just like we are right now. You see the video, okay? We do that online. We meet weekly. I have many groups throughout the week because I keep the groups small so that we get quality. We want everybody to participate. We want everybody to grow. If you're going to pay money for something, you better get what you pay for, right? And more. So, we're dedicated to the quality of the person, of you. Out of a quality you're going to produce quality work. And we'll use design and art to help train you to be you. It's very funny how that works. But if you would like help telling your story, then I would love to have a conversation with you, okay, on how to do that and how you can become part of the Academy. Now, before that, I want to share with you this small course that we have. Is that okay? Do I have your permission to share that with you? Cool. With you because you're going to learn in it our system of creating lines.